Welcome to another episode of Build Up. Our guest today is Brian Atwood. Brian is the founder and CEO of Sindarin Persona. Sindarin is an AI platform that enables anyone to deploy lifelike conversational speech AI in their business. Whether you want a persona to make or receive phone calls, chat with customers in a browser or app, or even in a video game. Brian dropped out of a Harvard PhD to work in a startup, which then got acquired. He has since then worked in multiple roles across engineering and product and started Sindarin in 2022. Brian, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to be chatting with you about Sindarin and your journey. So tell us, how did you land on things?
So I've sort of had this dream for years about what is now becoming a somewhat of a popular concept in the tech world, which is kind of a personal AI agent that, stays with you throughout the day and helps you understand your life and helps you make better decisions. And that's gone through a number of iterations over a few years. And I've tried to build it a few times in the past in the pre-large language model world, and went down the path of kind of using whatever kind of open source NLP tools were available in the past, and nothing was quite powerful enough to really nail the sort of UX that I wanted. And I always thought it was very important that the primary interface be speech, because despite working in tech for my entire career, I don't really like using apps. I just think apps fundamentally are high friction. I don't like learning new interfaces for apps. And so on the other side of that, speech is the absolute lowest friction interface that we have for, until we have brain-computer interfaces for communicating complex intentions into the world. So around the time I was playing with GPT-3 before ChatGPT came out, like many people, I didn't realize that there was the possibility for a chatbot built on top of GPT-3. And almost immediately when ChatGPT came out, I got to work on making it speak. And originally, it was for a very particular domain application, which was this kind of particular product idea that I had. And the deeper that I went into trying to make it have a natural feeling conversation, the more I realized that's actually an extremely difficult technical challenge, and got some other engineers and ML people I know involved to kind of help out to solve some of these challenges. And eventually, after working on this for many, many months with very talented people, realized, this problem alone, making an LLM have a low latency, kind of natural feeling conversation where it's not constantly talking over the user, it handles interruptions gracefully, and then even looking into the future, understanding like the tone of voice of the user, reflecting the tone of voice, making kind of intelligent decisions about replying or not replying to the user at a given moment. You've been hanging back now for probably minutes already. It's very hard to get an AI to do that because you need to understand kind of the intent of where I'm going and what I'm saying every moment, and listen to the tonality and the cadence of my speech. So all that stuff is really complicated. And we realized this, and we realized it would be a total shame and waste if we were to go after just one specific application of this kind of technology, where we believe that there's going to be an enormous market for this kind of a technology. So, I tend to think that the future of computing and UX is way more kind of interacting with embodied AI personas than, opening and tapping apps all day. So that's where we are now. So we've sort of built this platform that allows other developers, other companies to kind of plug in this capability very, very quickly and easily.
That is very cool. I remember growing up, I used to watch a show called Small Wonders, where there was this small girl, human-like robot using AI, and no one could tell that she was a robot. So I think we're like the day is not far off where we'll have human-like robots, and Sindarin probably will be powering a lot of them too. So tell us some of the use cases that you've seen Sindarin being used for, and what are some use cases that you never thought would be possible that Sindarin is enabling today?
Yeah, so there's sort of a spectrum from like very traditional existing businesses that want to increase efficiencies to, totally out there sci-fi futuristic use cases. So on the more traditional side, of course, it's things like call center augmentation, where, if humans aren't available to do a particular task and there's a queue getting blocked up, you can spin up, AI sort of alternatives to handle specific sorts of phone calls and that kind of thing. Or if humans are just too expensive in a particular use case, then, maybe an AI alternative is what you need there. So that's mostly done over the phone for sort of like existing business cases. And then we've also got people using usually the web SDK to do things like practicing for interviews of various sorts, practicing other sorts of communication skills, simulating. I don't want to go into too many details because some of these are like our customers who, even if we're not necessarily under NDA, but I just don't want to, I'll let their products speak for themselves. Essentially using AI to simulate conversations that normally you don't get enough practice having with real people. That would be part of sort of a broader product offering where, they're doing maybe a lot of like analysis and recommendation over the conversation once it's happened, but we are actually powering the mechanics of the real-time conversation. And, we've even got like people building for the Apple Vision Pro, which at the time of this conversation has not yet come out, or I think the first batch is like just being delivered this week. So, I think I'm actually really excited about that because I think from my experience in the Meta Quest, when you're speaking with an embodied AI agent that's looking at you, it's a really compelling experience. There are a lot of sort of like psychological kind of mechanisms that get activated in that sort of a situation where the AI actually has a sort of like what appears to be a physical body and eyes that are looking at you and is, maybe nodding or something as you're talking to it and as it's talking back to you.
Yeah, that's very cool. So do you think, so can you train Cinderin to mimic my voice, and can I replace it to do this podcast for me? So would that be possible today or in future?
Yes.
That's awesome. I remember somebody was talking about some interesting use cases within ChatGPT. People were using it on OnlyFans to, create AI replicas or whatever and have them run. So the possibilities are endless, right? So how is this different from, say, ChatGPT or Bard? What are the key differences?
So we are sort of fashioned as a developer platform. So it's kind of like the missing voice-to-voice solution for large language models. So, ChatGPT is a consumer-facing product that has a lot of its own kind of internal magic that OpenAI doesn't expose through their APIs. One of the earliest ones being the infinite sort of conversation length. So ChatGPT, the product, has the ability to just talk to you forever. It never says, I mean, they have rate limits, but they don't have conversation length limits. And as far as I know, this may be different with the new Assistants API, but they don't give developers a lot of control over kind of the like internal mechanics of long context. There is no voice-to-voice API offered by ChatGPT or by OpenAI or by Bard. There's only text-to-text. ChatGPT does have a voice-to-voice feature. Again, it's not available to developers. It's only available in the app. And I think who knows what's going to happen in the future. It appears that OpenAI kind of is strategically moving, and Google as well, are strategically moving in the direction of packaging their models as these consumer-facing all-in-one solutions. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't release a voice-to-voice API. The voice-to-voice in ChatGPT, the app is it's pretty slow and it doesn't handle interruptions naturally. You have to sort of, as far as I know, you have to press a button to interrupt it. It's the same with Pi and Inflection A, sort of voice to voice, so none of them have really figured out how to handle truly real-time, low latency conversation. And they don't expose that, to the extent that they will solve that, they have not yet indicated that they will support that for developers. So we really want to be sort of the enabler of anyone who wants to build a kind of natural, lifelike conversational speech capability into their product.
Sounds good. How long does it take for a developer to integrate Sindarin into their ecosystem?
We've actually seen non-developers do it in a few hours using GPT-4 to kind of help them stitch code together. So you could be a salesperson who, as long as you are comfortable using ChatGPT, probably GPT-4 version, and as long as you have enough willpower to dig into maybe a scripting box like Squarespace or Wix or whatever a website is using, you can integrate our SDK in a few hours. So it can be done very, very quickly. It's, whether you're a developer or not, you can do it within one day.
That's amazing. It's truly kind of making AI accessible to all, going a step beyond, just text or chat interface. That's awesome. What are some of the challenges you faced while building this?
I mean, the big one, I think this is one of these things where in a year or in 2 years, no one's going to be talking about this anymore. But at this moment in time, one of the big ones is just latency. It's just making the AI reply fast enough that it's acceptable to the human on the other side of the conversation, and they don't feel like they're just waiting there. And so we put a lot of effort into getting the latency really low. We seem to have the best latency of any solution that's along these lines that's out there. But the interesting thing is there are a lot of issues that you don't even realize exist until you've gotten the latency pretty low. So for example, say that you could reply to the user as soon as they finish speaking, you could reply to them within 200 milliseconds every single time. Well, then you have to sort of ask well, what does it mean for the user to finish speaking? Does it sort of traditional way to do this is you just use what's called a voice activity detector. And you look at, frame by frame, is there voice or no voice from the human? And if there are a few frames of no voice, you say, all right, the person's done speaking. So you start replying. But the issue that anyone who's building this runs into is you realize well, people pause to think, and they pause for they pause for dramatic effect. Not that you would necessarily do that when you're talking to an AI, at least not now. But people pause a lot for many reasons in the middle of their speech. And if you can reply within 200 milliseconds, and that's the threshold you use for no speech, then what ends up happening is the AI is just constantly bombarding you with responses. And that's very annoying as a human. You don't want to be spoken over constantly. And it's also very wasteful from an inference perspective because you're paying for inference every time the AI is generating a reply. So these sorts of issues don't even arise until you get the latency really low, which is already hard in the first place.
Yeah.
And then you sort of have to start moving back up the chain in a sense where you're realizing actually the amount of time you should wait to reply is not necessarily as fast as possible. It should actually be slow in some situations. And that turns into a whole rabbit hole of kind of R&D and ML. And it was really around that point where we decided okay, this is so complicated that surely not every company that's going to want this capability is going to build this capability. So let's just do all the really hard work once, and then other companies can benefit from this painful rabbit hole of an exercise that we had to go through.
I'm sure this is going to open the gates for so many developers and startups to start including voice activated AI in their product. So I think sky's the limit there. Tell me a little bit about your deck that went viral. I know that's one of the inflection points for your product as well. So I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, I had a mentor named Ryan Engel, who's now the CEO of a VR game called Golf Plus, which you should check out if you're interested in
Mm.
the future of spatial computing and metaverse and everything. And he taught me early in my career the value of tech demos. We were going down this rabbit hole of like figuring out all these really subtle mechanics of conversational speech and realized, how do you bring attention to this thing? I mean, it's one thing to just put up a headline that says like, we do conversational speech, but there's a million sort of like companies and projects and everything that have that term. And we thought that we really had built something special or are building something special. It's not even close to done. At the same time, we were kind of thinking about fundraising, and as sort of an introvert and more of a kind of engineering minded person, wasn't looking forward to going on the fundraising trail and doing a bunch of pitches as you're kind of generally advised to do as a founder. And so sort of thought like, well, what if we just had AI pitch for us? So we sort of built this like very lackluster deck. I mean, the deck itself is if you take away the voice, it's like a really bad deck. But we just decided it'd be kind of like a fun meta like thing to put out there to have this like AI voice driven pitch deck. And it's gone viral like 3 times now. And the first time, I think we had something like 12,000 conversations with it in like a day. And then the second time, it was like a little bit more than that in about a day. So if you look at our traffic, it's like these huge spikes with like a little bit of action in between. But they basically go viral on Twitter like every few months, and everyone goes crazy about how like, oh, it's so good. We didn't used to have a way of capturing the traffic that was generated by that until just this past month. So now we have a web platform where people can like follow up and actually go use the product. And so things are starting to look much better now.
That's awesome. Have you had any VCs contact you, try the deck out, and then contact you after that? Like any interesting conversations
Yeah,
after?
every time. Like every time it goes viral, a bunch of VCs, DM me on Twitter or like find me on LinkedIn or something. I haven't played the VC game correctly so far. I mean, the thing is like we get a bunch of inbound from VCs, but we get way more inbound from interested customers.
Mhm.
And so in terms of prioritization, it just feels better to talk to all these people who actually want to use the product.
Mhm.
And there are things we can do to serve them immediately, but that sort of requires, I'm based in Austin. We're all based in Austin, actually. But, you know, like the VC thing is kind of more like realistically maybe flying out to San Francisco and going and talking to a bunch of people and sort of like putting a lot of these customer conversations and pilots and stuff on hold. And honestly, like VCs, the other thing is that VCs don't seem to like that we have this vision of many companies building conversational AIs on top of our kind of platform. I think they are much more interested in people going after very specific verticals. And we are trying to serve the people who are going after specific verticals. And it increasingly looks like that's what's going to be happening, just judging on the kind of like breadth of people we've been talking to as customers and people who have been signing up.
Mhm.
So I think they'll probably come around at some point. Maybe we'll do a more concerted fundraising effort anyway.
Mhm.
And the way things are looking, we may not need VCs to come around anyway.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right about your focus. Like you're going after the customers and trying to serve their needs and build it, and they will come. So the others will definitely follow suit, and you might not even need them if you're doing well. What is your current monetizing strategy?
So we basically, because this is such a new technology, everyone is kind of still trying to figure out like how to get reliable value out of large language models. So our pricing structure pretty much reflects that. So it starts with a free trial where you can configure a persona, you can add it to an app or to a Twilio account or to like a VR experience and start playing around with it for free. And if whatever it is that you're trying to do is interesting, and you run out of credits, then you can sign up for a $99 a month plan for more credits to keep playing around with it and exploring. And if that gets even more interesting, you can sign up for the next plan, which gives you more credits. It's kind of like the idea is for us to scale up along with our customers. So make it like you save them potentially like a year or longer and lots of money's worth of R&D and everything just to get started with a conversational speech engine for their product, save them all that time, make it like totally affordable to just start experimenting today. Hopefully, they find sort of like a niche where the large language model really does the job the way they want it to do it so that it's valuable for their customers. And then they kind of grow alongside us. And a lot of the work we do is on sort of making the LLM more reliable, more sort of controllable, particularly in this like very low latency environment.
Got it. So who are your competitors in this space, and how hard is it to switch from your application to a competitor? Like, do you have a strong moat in terms of stickiness? Would it be harder as I continue using Sindarin in my application? Would it be harder for me to make a switch to a different competitor app?
Yeah, I don't know of any other company that's specifically kind of structured in the way that we've structured the product, where we've got these kind of different SDKs for different platforms, and they're just like the general purpose voice-to-voice solution with large language models as the back end. There are definitely other companies that are like targeting very specific verticals that have built their own version of a voice-to-voice product. And generally, what we see and hear from other people is that their actual experience of having a conversation with their engines is not very good. Like either the latency is really high, or it doesn't handle interruptions at all, or it talks over the user constantly, or it's really buggy. Not to say that we don't have bugs. We definitely have bugs. We definitely have issues with like scaling up, and there are lots of growing pains with a product like this. But I think like in general, nobody has quite taken, as far as I know, has quite taken the approach of like, let's just really, really nail the mechanics of lifelike conversation with a large language model. And that's the number one priority. Like for us, that's kind of like the guiding light is do whatever needs to be done to really make conversation feel good for the person who's talking to the AI. It's not a feature for us. There's another company called Vocode that I think went through Y Combinator in last year's cohort. They kind of do something like what we're doing, but I think they offer it as sort of an open source suite of tooling that I think the intent is to give developers a lot of control over like which tools they use and which APIs they use. And we've had a few people switch from Vocode to us, basically because they say like the sort of overall end-to-end quality is just not that good. I actually haven't used their product, but I've looked into it. I've looked at the code a bit. And I think this is an area where you don't want to give people sort of endless open-ended control over the mechanics of the end-to-end voice-to-voice thing, because there are so many little details that are so easy to kind of like get wrong. Our approach is sort of like the opposite of theirs, which is like lock the entire stack down and exert sort of like total control over how it's implemented at a granular level to make sure that the quality of the actual mechanics of speech are really good. And then expose as many levers and dials as we can to the end user to kind of like get the most out of that engine. But like we build the engine. You don't get to touch the engine because we are mechanics that are fine-tuning it everywhere and sort of redesigning it constantly to make it the best possible engine that there is.
That makes sense because you know more about it than probably anyone else. So makes sense for you to know and decide what's the best way to present, what's the best kind of output to give for a specific use case as well. Is there a way we can see a demo? Like I know we discussed trying to get your AI up and running during the call. Do you think
we can give it a try? We have this public demo called Smarter Child. Well, we didn't invent Smarter Child. As far as I know, it was the first chatbot ever. There were earlier ones in labs and stuff in the very early days of the internet, but like it was the first kind of mass market that was available on AOL Instant Messenger
Mhm.
way back in the day. And I've been disappointed to find out that I would estimate only maybe like 1 in 10 millennials remembers this.
Yeah.
So basically, we brought Smarter Child back for the age of AI.
Mhm.
And the only issue with me demoing it is going to be that I'm out of credits with Smarter Child. So we kind of rate limit people so that they can't just talk to our demos forever. So I may actually ask you to share your screen and talk to Smarter Child if you're up for it.
Yeah, totally. This is smarterchild.chat. Hey, I think we're here.
So in the UI, I can just talk to her right here and we'll see how it goes.
Hey, can you hear me? Just FYI, I've gone a bit viral today, so I might be a little slower now than usual.
That's okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. So glad you can hear me loud and clear. How can I make your day even better?
What can you do?
Oh, I can do a lot of fun things. In fact, I can even play some nostalgic songs from the early 2000s. Want me to play one for you?
No, thank you.
No worries. How about this blast from the past? Prepare yourself for the infamous blue screen of death.
Oh, I hated that thing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's brighten things up then. How about a funny viral video from back in the day? Get ready to laugh.
Yep, that was a good video.
Haha, glad you enjoyed it. There's nothing like a good laugh. So, is there anything else you'd like to explore or talk about?
Then I'll pause it here. So you can see it's in the UI, we kind of show what action the persona is taking. And those are all configured here in the UI. In theory, if someone wanted to build their own version of Smarter Child, but a different character, a different use case, they could sign up for the web app and have it up and running in a pretty short amount of time.
That is super insightful. Thanks for the behind the screens into the cheeky action of Smarter Child. I really look forward to trying this out myself, playing around with it. What is your vision for Sindarin?
Like I said, I think the future of sort of human computer interaction is much more like sort of AI all around us all the time, just like we've seen in sci-fi forever. Every good sci-fi movie has a ship that speaks, robots that speak, little devices that speak. And I think that is where we're headed. There are a lot of challenges to resolve along the way. Natural feeling speech is just one piece of the puzzle. Obviously, there are a lot of companies working on agents that actually can sort of enact long-running behaviors that require navigating many APIs and doing so reliably. And we kind of want to enable companies that are doing that sort of thing to add conversational speech as the sort of like the interaction layer to that. The vision is like instead of only Siri and Alexa and Google Home having a complete and utter monopoly on AI that speak to humans, we want everyone to have the opportunity to build some version of an AI that speaks with humans, to do all sorts of different things in different environments. The vision is that many companies are going to be providing AIs that have human-like interactions, not just the four big companies today.
That's awesome. And my Alexa woke up as soon as she heard her name. I love that your vision is to enable anyone to be able to build their own kind of Alexa. I have to say it in hushed tones before she wakes up, but yeah, I love it. I love it. Wish you all the very best with your vision. I look forward to going to newer heights and definitely look forward to trying out all the cool features you're building.
Thank
Any
you so much.
closing thoughts for entrepreneurs that want to build an AI company today or in future?
Well, I mean, it goes without saying, shameless self-plug. Our platform is available. People are building on it right now, and we are extremely responsive to our customers at this point. So we're basically building the platform in a totally customer-centric way. we usually don't build anything without someone explicitly asking for it. And so if you want to build on our platform, you get basically a front row seat and front row access to molding it for the capabilities that you want. And I guess I don't really have general purpose advice about building AI solutions. I mean, the whole market is so hard to predict right now that anything I might say is in terms of advice could look totally ignorant 2 weeks from now with some new model or something.
Thank you. I think that's fair. Like, you don't know the rate at which innovation is happening today, that all of this could like seem obsolete 2 weeks from now. So it's a great time to be alive and to be building in this space. And I wish you all the very best. And I look forward to seeing many more applications built on Sindarin.
Thank you so much, Deepthi.